What's poppin', y'all? My name is Phyllis McKenzie, and welcome to Curate Podcast. If you love the expression of creativity in visual, performing, literary, and culinary arts, then this is the podcast for you. So subscribe and follow our social media pages through the link in the description and be part of the family. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to Carol Life Podcast. I'm glad you're joining us here today, and Ramadan Kareem to all my friends and family who are Muslim. So today we are joined by a brand new guest. She's going to dive us deep into arts itself. Her name is Meghana Giridhar. She is actually the founder of a global curator platform which empowers the independent artisan. So Meghna, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Completely my pleasure, Phyllis. This is I'm so excited to be on your show.
Yeah, we are so excited to have you because finally we'll get an in-depth information when it comes to visual arts itself.
Absolutely. I'm ready.
Yeah, so how about we start by you telling us your story? Who is Meghna?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's always great to speak to like-minded people and people from the same field who are looking to promote the same kind of objective that I'm trying to do through my platform, Let's Curate. So,
Mhm.
in short and sweet way, I'll introduce Let's Curate. In a one-sentence description, if you had to ask me, um, Let's Curate is a global curator platform that aims to unite independent artisans from around the world. The common thread between all our artisans is that they are individuals in the sense that they're not part of an organization. They work individually. They are focused on handcrafted products. They take the time to perfect their art, which is key to what Let's Curate stands for. So this is more of, if you may call it, a move towards sustainable, slow art movement versus mass-produced, fast fashion, everything that's the opposite of that.
Mhm.
So we showcase handmade, high-end designs and curated art and crafts, textiles and lifestyle products, which are steeped in traditional arts as well as contemporary interpretations. And all of our products or all of the artwork that we present, it's unique, it's custom, it's one of a kind. And the simple idea behind this is to empower independent artisans. I feel like there are many platforms and many avenues that focus a lot on bulk or things which are mass produced. I wanted to kind of veer a little differently and focus more on the individual.
That's amazing. And Let's Curate has artisans from Europe, Asia, America, and even around other parts of the world. So, can you shed some light on some uncommon art forms showcased in your platform?
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right. The way the platform is showcased is, we actually, if you go to the platform, you'll see that we have kind of divided the whole network based on continent. So we have artisans from Europe, Asia, Australasia, which includes New Zealand and Australia, Africa, and of course America and Europe. To highlight a few, that's a very tough question for me, Phyllis, because I feel all artisans are so special. But if I, for the lack of time, I'll just focus on a few of them.
Mhm.
I would begin with Asia. We have a wonderful artist. Her name is Jyoti Khan, and she focuses on a traditional Indian art form called Madhubani. Um,
Mhm.
we- and Madhubani is, it's got a certain style where it comes from a long time ago. It's passed down through generations, and she actually learned this art form from her in-laws, who are award-winning Madhubani painters. And it's funny because Let's Curate began or rather, the idea was in my head, but I kind of like kicked it into high gear when I spotted her art at an airport when I was on the way back from India. And I'm not the kind of person who commissions art pieces, but her piece was so compelling that I just commissioned a painting from her for my apartment in New York, and that kind of gave me the idea for Let's Curate. So she Madhubani paintings. Madhubani essentially means forest of honey, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a district in the northern part of India, and it's a tribal art form which can be traced back to almost 2,500 years ago. And what they do is the paintings depict symbolic images of nature as well as I would say gods and goddesses. This
Mm-hmm.
is they don't use chemicals, they don't use paints. The beauty of this art form is that they use broomsticks as brushes, and they use natural colors from leaves and flowers and charcoal as paint color. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's
So
pretty
this
amazing.
yeah, that's and it's very intricate, it's very detailed. They also work in a very free form manner in the sense that if, for example, the piece that I commissioned from her, the theme was Indian village life. And when I spoke to her, and it was the first time, it kind of took me aback a little bit because she said, you know what? I'm not going to give you a draft. I just draw as I think of the concept, and what you get is what you get. And that was pretty scary. But then at the end of, and it's a long process. It takes a long time because it's so, so detailed and intricate. It took almost 6 months for her to finish this huge painting that she made for me, completely worth it. But it's very free form. They don't work in a traditional format where they do drafts and then they kind of fine tune the draft. What they draw is the final version of what's in their head. Um, it was a way for generations to pass on stories from their ancestors, and it stayed alive even now, and it's absolutely stunning. It was a way of storytelling for this particular tribe, and it's still alive. It's extremely rich. It's very diverse, and it's absolutely fantastic. So that's one unique folk art that we've highlighted, I would say, from within Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to New Zealand, I'm sure you're aware, New Zealand has a deep history with Maori culture, and we
Mm-hmm.
found
Mm-hmm.
a phenomenal artisan who creates bone art jewelry. And the jewelry again has deep significance in Maori culture. So you'll see the shapes and the forms, um, kind of depicting the tradition behind that. These are like two traditional, I would say, traditional art forms that which have been kind of, this is like the fifth or the sixth generation that's doing it. And I thought that was absolutely, I had never seen something like that before. And Let's Curate initially started with me being absolutely obsessed with these 10 artisans that had been following through my travel. So I'm an avid traveler. I would, wherever I would travel, I would kind of try to look for um, local artisans, and I kept in touch with around 10 of them. And it was funny because there were 10 people from 10 different countries, and I kept in touch with them over many years. And when I finally sat down and I said, no, this is the year I'm going to begin, I reached out to them, and they were my first group of 10 people that I showcased. So they're all steeped in tradition. Coming to a more contemporary version, we have from Europe, we have this absolutely talented maker. She's from Estonia. There's one lady from Estonia and one lady from Ukraine, and they both use wire techniques to make their jewelry. And they have a completely contemporary interpretation of that. It's not steeped in tradition. It's a technique that they learned from their older relatives, but they have completely modernized their interpretation of that. And we have a wonderful jewelry selection from them. So wire jewelry is, I would say, something that stands out from our Europe collection. And of course, Africa, there are no words. We have someone who is from Kenya, and they have done a wonderful combination of combining social mission with art form. So what they do is all the waste that you see in the oceans. For example, rubber. A lot of they see a lot of waste in terms of like slippers being thrown in the ocean life and things like that, and they actually redesign them and make them convert them into animals. So it is actually converting waste into a sustainable product. And they're vibrant and a fantastic representation of animals that come from Kenya. So
Hmm.
as you can see, I can go on and on because I feel like each one of our artisans has something so special because either they are continuing the legacy from their ancestors or they've completely gone the other direction and given us a fresh perspective to what we may have seen in the past, and now you'll be kind of looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes.
Hmm. Meghna, I've been to several art galleries in my country. We have one that's purely for contemporary art. We call it One of Contemporary Art Gallery. We have one which has mixed art. And what I seem to understand, me myself, I'm not a curator, but as an individual, I normally tell myself that art is not what you see, it's what is inside of you. So for it to appeal to you, it has to speak to you first. So as a curator, what do you look for in these independent artists?
I'm looking for a story. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking to understand, not to sound dramatic, but I'm actually looking to see the soul of the person who makes it. And I think this is why I wanted to focus on individuals versus an organization, because I feel each one of us carries a combination of stories, our own thoughts, our culture, influences as we've grown up. And I think, in some way or the other, it comes out in the way we speak, we write, or better still, the way you create. So
Mm-hmm.
every time I look at a product that's interesting, I kind of now, it's been a while since I've been doing this. When I look at something, I kind of tend to look beyond what I see. I would probably not see, yes, you admire the fabric and you admire the way it is presented or the way, when you wear the earrings, the way you look when you wear the earrings. But now when I look at something, I immediately, my mind goes to, oh, what made her choose this shape? What made him choose this material? What is he trying to say? Is it something that he has fond memories of when he was growing up? Is that something that he is there a message that he's trying to give through his or her creations? So what I'm trying to see is I'm trying to see into the mind of an artist. And that's what's so fascinating. And I feel like it's kind of universal and kind of like a never ending search because I feel all of us are unique in that sense. Even though we may have, say, if you and I grew up in the same country, we have the same kind of environment, I still feel you and I are different. So when someone creates something, it may be jewelry, but jewelry can be designed in so many different ways. And I think what the final product is a final product of your thought and your influences. And that's what that's my search with every artisan that I kind of follow or, kind of involve within our network.
Well, that's actually a very amazing thought. And Magda, have you ever thought of starting your own art museum? And if so, what would it be about?
You know, this is a very interesting question, Phyllis, and I, I I have thought about this a lot because when I initially thought of this idea, and this idea was kind of like it was churning in my mind for years and years before I actually kickstarted it in 2019. So I would say this is almost 10 years in the making, and the thing that held me back was I kept telling myself, you know what, wait, I don't have an education in art history. I'm not a painter. I haven't created anything. I haven't handcrafted anything. Do I have the right to even think of putting this out there? And through my process, I mean, through the process that I've gone through, I realized that this kind of mindset, for some reason, I think it's maybe through the literature that we read or the art galleries that we go to too, which kind of it's kind of this thing where an art gallery is for someone who has a very deep understanding of art. And I kind of want over the years I've realized that yes, there is I absolutely appreciate what very niche art galleries are trying to do. They're trying to, for those who are educated and those who have studied and learned this for years and years, you want to kind of give them an outlet and help them get to a higher level when it comes to appreciating art. And absolutely, that is so important in this world. But I also feel that, art, like you said, art is for everyone, to put it simply. And if I had an art gallery, I think I would want the message that I would want to kind of relay through that space would be everyone is welcome. Whether you're an artist, whether you're a layperson, whether you're someone, it's not a space to judge. It's not a space to say, this is great art and this is not great art. What appeals to you may not appeal to someone else, but it is everyone's right to appreciate and enjoy it. So I feel if I ever got to that degree where I had my space, I would continue, of course, to support independent individual artists and artisans. But I would also kind of provide the space for those who may have felt a little restrained, thinking, oh, I've never had an education in this, but this is what I love to do and this is my passion. Where do I go? My space would be a space for those kinds of artists. I would say that would be my dream.
Hmm. And Meghna, you are Indian, right?
Yes.
So, are there any challenges you faced as a curator being Indian but living in the United States?
To be honest, I have not. I'm very very grateful to that. Grateful for that because once the I would say the shortcomings and the challenges were kind of within myself. Like I
Hmm.
just explained, the idea was in my mind, and I kept holding myself back, thinking, do I really, can I do this? Should I do this? Am I good enough to do this? And I felt like once I put the energy out into the world and I said, no, you know what? I want to do it and I feel so strongly about it. It has stayed with me for so long. I really need to make something of it. It was interesting. Once I put the idea across to the artisans and then I decided to turn it into a real business. So I had to, of course, take care of the business aspects of it, like creating the platform, finding the right person to create, to create the vision or represent the vision that I had in my mind. It actually flowed pretty smoothly. So I felt like I held myself back. The challenge was that I had to kind of dig myself out of the hole and say, no, you know what? I can do it. I want to do it. And I will voice what I'm thinking. The rest was kind of easy. The challenges were, I would say they were challenges, but it was in a different area, to be honest. But being an Indian, growing up in India but living in New York, that aspect I don't think was challenging at all.
Mhm. And I'm glad you didn't receive any challenges because quite recently we've been having the hashtag Stop Asian Hate, and I'm really glad that your work has not been tampered with when it comes to who you are as a person.
Thank you so much for that. And yes, it is horrific what's going on, and this absolutely needs to stop. At an individual level, it has not affected me, but my heart goes out to all those who are facing this and who have to live in fear and hesitation to kind of even step out of their house. It is appalling. It needs to stop now. It is just something that's it's too horrifying to even put into words.
Hmm. And for the sake of any artist listening, how do you find new artists or new ideas as a curator?
Typically, I kind of work in my format is no format, to be very um, because I'm consciously trying to step away from creating a framework because as art is a free form. I don't want to be creating a set of rules because if I put down a set of rules, I will only attract the kind of people who meet those kinds of rules, and that was exactly what I wanted to go away from. So I would say if there are artists who are interested in collaborating with us, me and my team are more than thrilled to have a look at your work. There are a bunch of ways in which we collaborate. So it's not just an online showcase. We create content. We Because the idea is to, like I said, go behind what actually influences you or inspires you as an artist. So we have a different different ways of bringing that to the forefront. So if there are any artists listening who are interested in learning more about how we could work with them, the easiest way is to reach out to us. We are on Instagram at let's_curate, or you can email us at let'scurateInfo@gmail.com. Please be we are a very small team. Please be assured we respond to each and every email that we receive. So I would never, my biggest fear is to miss an email from someone who is passionate and who's kind of interested in showcasing their work, because I feel like I would miss out on something magical. So I'm always very, me and my team are always very much on alert for any kind of new um, emails or any new outreach from artists. So the easiest way is to just reach out through whichever way is the most convenient. And in terms of what we're seeking from potential collaborations is, one, a very defined perspective of your own. Two, something, like I said, we only work with individuals. We only work with people who focus on custom work. So we don't, I would say we are not involved or work with artists who make, say, 10,000 pieces of the same kind of jewelry. We're more about, uh, presenting, say, a ceramic collection of 10 pieces, or like handcrafted boomerangs, which would be a collection of 5 pieces. There are artisans and artists that we have in our network who also who change their perspective or their inspirations based on how they evolve, and that's again very fascinating. We had someone who we presented a ceramics collection that she made, and it was fantastic. And she came to me a couple of years later and she said, you know what, I'm actually tired of ceramics. I want to move to some other material. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like my time with working with ceramics has ended. I'm not, feeling as inspired as before. I'm going to take a break and I'll be back. And that brought me so much joy because, I felt like she felt confident to come to me and say, give me space, give me time, and I'll be back. And she came back with something completely different. She moved into actually doing a watercolor painting collection, which also we presented. And it was such a wonderful process to see her evolve and change and grow as an artist. And I thought that was a victory for Let's Curate, because she felt confident and she felt she had the freedom to change and grow, which is what I feel is how art evolves.
And Meghna, do curators have an ethical or maybe a social responsibility when it comes to their work?
Absolutely. I feel like not a curator, but I feel as individuals or in whatever form or shape that we work, it is the need of the hour. It is not something that's a byproduct of a business or a lifestyle. I think it has to be just like you brush your teeth. Having a sustainable lifestyle or ethical perspective to life is something that we can and should train ourselves to be involved in. And I think it's again a process. um, you consciously accept and try to follow on that path. It may not be easy, it may not be a straight path, but I think the step needs to be taken.
And speaking of paths, what is a good career trajectory path for a curator? Where should one start and where should one aim when it comes to their work?
I think having a very clear vision of what it is you want to say
Mhm.
is that's it. It's as simple as that. And it sounds simple, but it's actually a very difficult. I would say it's a very difficult mindset to kind of develop and be in a space where you're like, this is who I am. And again, this is something where if your basic, or if the foundation of your mission is clear, you will grow in a way which will support that mission. So the mission is extremely important. So to give you an example, when we when we first launched in June 2019, we launched with 10 artists from 10 countries. These were people that had kept in touch, and we were happy to have them on board. They were excited. It was very, very, it was such a nice, cohesive group. And the mission, even in June 2019, was to empower individuals. Now, since 2019, we've grown a lot. From being an online showcase, we've actually moved to launching limited edition initiatives. We have launched something called Artist Spotlight, where every month we highlight the work of one artist. I'm not talking about artisan. This is purely people who are involved in who create paintings or textile fabrics, or artists in that sense. So we don't showcase products as such within the Artist Spotlight. So we've grown from being, in simple words, an online store to launching multiple initiatives. And we've now, because of what happened was in 2020, we had signed on to a bunch of, to represent at a ton of artist fairs. And as you know, the pandemic hit us, and we were paralyzed for a couple of months. And I felt a huge responsibility towards all the people that I was representing, because we had all these plans and they were all shut down within a matter of days. And for 2 months, me and my team, we just didn't know where to kind of take this. But through adversity, like they say, comes opportunity. And that's when we said, you know what, all the stuff that we were supposed to showcase at in-person fairs and pop-up stores, we are just going to do it online. We're just going to start something called Ready to Ship Collection, which we did. We all through that came limited edition initiatives where people, we had newer people who approached us and they said, because of the pandemic, I only have resources to make a collection of 3 pieces. Where do I show that? It's not enough to create a shop or a website to have 3 pieces. Is there some way you can support me? And that led us to limited edition, where it doesn't matter whether you make 1 piece or 3 pieces or 5 pieces. It's custom, it's handmade. You've taken the effort, you're representing something unique. We will give you a space for that. And that's how limited edition began in 2020. And we've grown to about, I think, 8 or 9 artists and artisans who have showcased their work with us. And we've now also grown to provide resources for them, where we do a lot of video content for them, where artists take us, to their studios. They talk about the work that they're currently working on. These are all avenues which is important for them to kind of put a face to their work, and also for the listeners and the customers to understand where the person is coming from. But through all of this, my mission stayed the same. So as a curator, I think it's extremely important to be very clear about what your framework is, in the sense, what are you trying to say? If that message is clear, everything else that branches out of that is just going to support the basic, I would say, the basic thought process.
And after the pandemic, do you think that Let's Curate can actually have a face-to-face exhibition?
I really hope so. I'm not sure, keeping fingers crossed. I mean, I'm hoping that we can kickstart in summer this year. But, Phyllis, what has happened is we are now prepared for any situation. If, God forbid, the pandemic worsens, or things, still stay unsafe, or it's not kind of, we don't get the green signal to have large in-person fairs, we still have options that we have come up with to connect buyers and artists. However, I still feel I would love an opportunity to talk about all the products and all the wonderful work that our artisans have created, and have a face-to-face interaction with people who are interested in that. I think nothing beats a face-to-face, a meetup, because there is something, there is Zoom and there's Skype and there's the computer and there's all of this, but to actually get the opportunity to hug someone or talk to someone or show them their work while they're standing next to you, I think that's, I hope that never changes, because I think there's something, devices can never replace in-person relationships. So I'm really hoping that we get an opportunity. If not this year, we would be ready whenever things open up. But we've
Hmm.
also made sure that we have created avenues and spaces for artists to continue showing their work in some manner or the other.
And speaking of art, you mentioned earlier that you've met a lot of artisans from different
Mhm.
parts of the world who have art that's filled with culture in it. So do you think that maybe in this century and centuries before, art has actually evolved or maybe changed?
Absolutely. I feel it evolves every day. It evolves every day when someone just picks up a paintbrush or someone just picks up clay and says, you know what, I'm going to make this. And there is some, the thought process starts with, the idea comes through something. It's either a story that you've read or a remark that someone makes or a place that you visited and you were enthralled with. So I do feel that it is the traditional part of, there will always be people who will focus on tradition and there will always be people who will focus on the contemporary. And I think
Mhm.
both need to have the time and the space to grow. I don't think developing one means the death of the other. Um, and that's the universal beauty of art because I don't think it's such a strong force. I don't think any kind of art that's compelling or speaks to people can ever stop or die.
And what advice, Meghana, would you give an artist who is listening right now?
My advice would be if it's something that if it's a thought that constantly distracts you, that never leaves your mind, that you know within yourself is something that you should pay attention to, it's time to work on that. I feel like we are trained to kind of follow the straight and narrow path. We study, we do a job. There are certain rules that somehow we kind of compelled, or we not pressurized, I would say, we just kind of follow the herd, for lack of a better term. And I think great artists, or true artists, not great artists, true artists are those who have the courage to just say, you know what, this actually does not work for me. I feel something inside me that I really need to pursue. And if it means breaking from the mold, or if it means taking a chance, I would say take the leap of faith. It took me a while to take this leap of faith, and it's not a regret. But I wish, it's not a regret, but I feel like, I could have learned a lot more if I had just turned my idea into what it is right now a few years ago. Time is not wasted, but I just feel like now there's so much freedom in my thought, because I've kind of like broken the shackles of, am I supposed to do this? Once you break the shackles and break the locks of what I'm supposed to do versus what I really feel compelled to do, I think that's the start of something really good for yourself. And I think that's such an individual kind of feeling, because it's not something you can express completely to anyone. Just to give you an anecdote, when I launched, the website, it was on a sunny day in June 2019. I was all alone in my apartment, and my technical team, they called me and they said, "Oh, when do you want to launch it? Everything's ready. Everything's been approved." I was in the house. My kids were there. My husband was there. It was a full house. And I knew the next day I was going to be alone because the kids were going to be at school and I didn't have work. I didn't have my day job at that point, because I'd kind of quit to do this. My husband was at work, and they said, do you want to launch it now because we're ready? And I said to myself, I have carried this within me. It's like a baby that you carry within you, and only a mother knows how it feels, right, to give birth and to carry that soul within you. And I said, you know what, let's launch it tomorrow. And the reason I said that was because I wanted to be all alone. I wanted to be just with myself in the moment when I kind of set this platform out into the world. Like it's kind of like giving birth to a baby. Um, But it's the reason I'm giving you this anecdote is because that's the thing. The what compels you is a very individual feeling, and if it's strong enough
Mm.
and if you're passionate about it, you need to experience it completely and be present and just follow it, just follow through. And I feel the courage comes when you take the first step.
And as we wind up, Meghna, how has your journey in being a curator shaped who you are today?
I feel I'm a lot more fearless. I'm a
Hmm.
lot more fearless. That does not mean I'm perfect, and I'm fearless, and I'm also very aware at how much more I need to learn about this field, how much more growth is possible, and that is exciting. That is very liberating, and that has I think that has kind of my personality has moved from being filled with doubt or uncertainty to kind of knowing and being very assured that this is what I'm going to pursue for a long time. And it's very exciting to know and wake up every morning and open your eyes and say, oh my God, this is another brilliant idea. I get to do what I love every single day. And it's a very exciting way to live your life, I would say. So I think I've kind of moved from filled with doubt about, oh, I studied all of these things and I was doing this corporate job and I have this amazing paycheck, and life is good, life is good, life is smooth, to now being fulfilled in a manner which is not without its challenges, which is uncertain. I don't know the path ahead, but it fills me with joy and excitement every single day. And I feel like being being one with my adventurous spirit is what has Let's Curate has brought me up until this stage. Hopefully the path ahead is just as exciting, even if it's filled with challenges. I really look forward to what's coming ahead.
And speaking of the path ahead, what's the long-term vision for you and Let's Curate?
um I'm just keeping it simple. I have learned not to make plans. I think the biggest thing that holds me back is to say, oh, in 5 years I want to be here, in 10 years I want to be there. I've kind of let go of that thought process. I just want to keep the door open for emerging artists and artisans, individual creators. Um, I just want to create different kinds of avenues and platforms to showcase them in the best possible manner, because I feel without art, um, it's a very, very lonely space to be in. So all I hope is to kind of continue growing and supporting the mission of Let's Curate, which is just to empower people who want to follow their own path.
And we've come to the end of today's episode, Meghna. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much, Phyllis. This was wonderful. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you too. And for anybody who's listening, remember Let's Curate is on Instagram at let's_curate. It's a global curator platform that brings to you unique, handcrafted creations by 36 makers from 24 countries. And if you'd like to be part of this, you can find Let's Curate on their website at www.letscurate.com. And their email and all their social links will be in the description down below. So make sure to go and follow them, check them out, and you could also be part of this global curator platform. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Meghna?
No, that was it. I'm just very grateful to have this opportunity to create this platform, not only because of the platform itself, but also the opportunity to speak to like-minded people like you from around the world. I'm in New York, you're far away, but I feel like we're connected, and I think that's such a victory and it's such an overwhelmingly positive feeling for this entire movement that I'm trying to create.
Art connects people from different dimensions and different parts of the world. So, yeah, this is actually a very nice experience for me and my audience too.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for tuning in to Kara Life Podcast. We are on Spotify, Amazon Music. We are also in Apple Music and in iTunes Store. You can drop a follow there and also drop a rating and review. It helps us a lot. But this week, this is the end. Join us next week for a brand new episode. Goodbye, everybody.
And that will be it for this week. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcasting app, especially Apple Podcasts, and share it with all your friends. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, creativity is intelligence having fun. Until next time, #PodRock.